Welcome
All
back.
right. Good afternoon, Chase. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Hey, all right. So I had to do some research on you.
Oh, let's hear it. What'd you find?
Tell us where you went. Tell us where you went to college.
I went to Alabama, actually. Born and raised from Birmingham. My dad went to Alabama. All three of my brothers actually went to Alabama as well. So we are a well-fed family, but South Carolina was never really in the picture back then. So now, whatever.
Well, they are now, aren't they? Yeah, it's
They are. They are.
Well, first of all, Alabama is a wonderful campus. It's a neat place, and I have spent time at the Houndstooth.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it's hard to get out of there, But
after a game, it's the worst place on earth to get out of.
You make it
try
out.
to get back on 20. Oh man, you may as well just stay. So, but yeah,
traffic on game day is horrible.
Yeah, we all love Alabama here. It's silently, we all have respect for it. So I've got a bunch of Bama friends and stuff, and certainly love that program. So Park Avenue, I guess rumors of its demise have been greatly exaggerated. Back up and running, Chase, with a new partnership that I know a lot about, and I'll let you take that from here. With Carolina Rise now in partnership, a business agreement with Park Avenue, and I guess we're now moving forward.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I'll explain a little background, I guess, like you said, rumors of demise, rumors of what is Park Avenue exactly. So Park Avenue is a subsidiary of ESM, our parent company, actually this side behind me, which is primarily sports marketing representation for NFL. And then once NIL came into the picture, college athletes as well. So we represent athletes like Jalen Hurts, Mac Jones, the Cavaliers twins down in Miami, Brock Bowers, Nick Chubb, a bunch of others. And then when NIL came into the picture, since we are locally based, that's how we got into conversation about coming on to help the University of South Carolina. But what does that look like? There was never anything before like Park Avenue, and I still don't think there's anything else like it out there because it's hard to replicate. It's hard to bring something like this on. But what is that? Park Avenue is free, non-exclusive sports marketing representation for college athletes. So what that means, if someone listening doesn't know exactly how a sports agent works, is typically a sports agent is going to take a fee of all of your deals. So that's typically around 20%. So let's say an athlete makes, this is going to be just random, but $1 million in deals for a year. One of our athletes makes $1 million. A sports marketing agent is going to take 200,000 of that. They're going to take 20%. That's how they make their cut. But what is unique about Park Avenue is that we take no fees from the athletes. So a South Carolina athlete that does all of their representation through us, they make $1 million. They take home $1 million. So it's really unique in that sense. And I think it provides a really big recruiting advantage for the University of South Carolina because you can go here and every dollar you make is going to go to your bank account and not to anyone else. So there's a lot that goes into that, but that is a broad overview of who we are, what we do, and why we definitely have not gone down in demise at all.
Chase, take us through your experience for a minute. Put us in your shoes over the last, I don't know what, year or so. When Park Avenue really was kind of getting going, and then of course had to jump and clear some hurdles, and now to where you are now. Internally, what was your team focused on, and did you feel like you've achieved those goals to get where you are today?
Yeah, for sure. I think honestly, so like you said, we started out strong. I would say it was like end of August, early September last year. And started Park Avenue, like I mentioned, something had never been done before. So we were working through what does that look like? How do we get going? How do we build the connections? Because as NFL marketing agents, we have a lot of connections in the industry in general, in brands. But then it comes down to locally too. That was something we had never really tackled before. Local South Carolina, Columbia, Gamecock fans. So we were jumping through all of that, making all the connections, trying to get out and about and meet people and understand the local scene and what brands would be interested in partnering, who wanted to support. And then, like you mentioned, and I think it was October, the NCAA came out with a new policy that kind of hindered us from working anymore. So we had to take a month or two off where we couldn't do anything. We didn't want to get anyone in trouble. And then got to come back. So there's been a lot of up and down. Like our wave has been very much like this since we started. Yet we've still crushed it. And a lot of people don't know what's going on behind the scenes most of the time. But I mean, the amount of deals and revenue we've brought in for South Carolina athletes, regardless of the ups and downs that we've had and when we could work and when we couldn't work, is exceeded expectation. So I think that goes to show a lot for how hard we're working on this end. I mean, our team is 17 people. 3 are primarily like full on dedicated to Park Avenue. So all day, every day, we are working with the South Carolina student athletes, talking to the athletes, building relationships with them, understanding what brands they want to partner with, what's important to them, and then going out and doing this exact same thing with the brands. So it's a lot of work, and that is my full-time job. But yeah, I think that we've exceeded a ton of expectation and we'll continue to do so. And now that we have more of a name in the scene, in the school with the athletes, and then again in the local scene as well with the brands, that it's going to just go up from here.
Okay.
And Craig asked, how does Park Avenue make its money? It's funded by the Carolina Rise, the collective. So it's real simple. Instead of the university funding it, the collective funds it. That's basically it. And of course, with all of our media partners, I think that makes a lot of sense because I think, you know, every time there's a deal or just the general visibility and the ability to connect with fans, and the collective is fan funded, you know, we can get the word out quick on all of this. Nick Harper, I noticed you guys have been busy with him since he's been on campus. And tell us about Nick. I mean, obviously a very marketable athlete all the way around. And tell us what's been going on with him so far.
Yeah, Nick's great. I've talked to him and his parents, met with him multiple times, and we hit the ground running with him pretty hard. So I guess I should back up and mention that each athlete that we work with, we have a very different approach to their marketing. This is something I've talked to Nick a lot about, is that we're not just going to throw you a deal just randomly out of the blue. We want to make sure it fits your personal brand, and especially someone as visible as he is. There's a lot of eyes on him. There's a lot of expectation from him, and he's kind of starting fresh. This is his first year in college. I know he's had eyes on him before this, but he's building his personal brand really starting now. So that's a big deal, is making sure that the deals and brands he partners with are brands that are going to stay with him long term, and that makes sense for him. So for instance, he isn't interested in supplements at all. He does not want any sort of protein shakes or any deals like that. He doesn't care about things like that. So we had an offer, a really great offer from one, and he's like, I don't want to do that. And I'm like, great. Now that I know that, I'm not even going to bring this to you anymore because we don't want to do something that doesn't align with your brand. So he's awesome. And there's a lot of opportunity there because he's training for the Olympic trials next spring. He obviously is going to be playing football. He's starting as wide receiver. Maybe he'll be dual position, and then he's going to be running track. So there's a lot of different opportunities that he has, and just making sure that we're staying in line with his brand. I went through, we sat down, and he told me all the different brands he's obsessed with. Bojangles. He has this very specific order. It's like a honey barbecue chicken sandwich sort of deal he mixes together. So he'll tell me specific things like that. And what I always tell the athletes is, the better I know you, the better I can work for you. So just tell me random stuff, like the randomest thing. Like, for instance, we FaceTimed right after he committed. I was FaceTiming him just to get to know him, understand. And I was like, tell me something random, like walk around your room, find something random. And he was like, oh, I'm obsessed with cologne. And he showed me his whole cologne collection. He was like, I love Dior Savage. It's my favorite one. And I'm like, okay, great. And I remembered seeing that there was a new cologne brand. Making waves in the NL space, reached out to them, and we just announced that partnership yesterday. So he's partnering with Ovation Fragrance, which is made by Sean Crenshaw, all about representing men of color, having a scent that works for you. Nick loves it. And so that's a big partnership, and that makes sense for him because he loves cologne. So there's a lot going on there. I have like a million calls set up brands for him this week. A lot of people are interested in him just because he is very unique. And he's down to do everything. He's very excited to be in Columbia. He's told me, he's like, I love my teammates. I love my coaches. Like, I love my roommate. He's loving it so far. So I'm excited for the future with him.
So from what I'm understanding here is that Coach Stepp and our wide receivers coach at Carolina and maybe the training staff will douse him in this cologne before he plays each and every game, in a way to maybe distract defensive backs as they attempt to cover him on the outside. And then before we know it, he's gone. You know those commercials where you're smelling the roses. Oh my God, the guy's behind me. Oh, okay. Yeah. So you've mentioned some really interesting things here, and you're a marketing expert. I've been in marketing for a long time myself. You're probably much better than I am. So we're going to ask you the questions. I'll let you give the answers. Everybody, not everybody, that's a poor term, Chaise, but a lot of people think that they're marketable and they're not, or they think that they're more marketable than they really are. What makes a student athlete now, not the pros who've been on TV for years? What makes a student athlete, maybe a young student athlete whom not a lot of folks know a lot about, marketable?
I think that can be answered a couple different ways. So one is obviously going to be social following. We know that brands are going to be more interested typically in someone that has a larger following, because that means there's going to be more eyes on their content. So I think that's one. But then on the opposite end, like I just mentioned about getting to know the athletes so I can work better for them, those little quirks or funny things that no one else knows, but they want to know. Fans want to see the personal side of the athletes. They want to see who they are off the field. So, for instance, Xavier Legette, another receiver at South Carolina, he's awesome. And on Instagram, you'll just see like his football photos, but you talk to him and he's from Mullins. He's obsessed with ATVs. Like, he's obsessed with all things outdoors and hunting. And no one knows that. So I can use those little tidbits to go to a brand and be like, hey, no one knows this. They'll be interested in it when it comes up. Yeah, maybe he doesn't have 100,000 followers on Instagram, but people will be engaged with it because they don't know that about him. So finding those little tidbits and being able to make a story around it, and not making up a story, but creating the story that fans will engage with because it's something that they didn't know before, is ways that if they don't have a big following, we can still make them marketable. So we don't want anyone to feel like, oh, I don't have a bunch of followers on social media, like I'm never going to get an NIL deal. That's not true. I actually am working with he plays defense. His name's Spam Martin Scott. He has, I think, 2,000 followers on Instagram. We took him to the Gamecock Club event in York County. He made a really great relationship with one of the brands there, and now they have a long-term deal until March together. So it's really making sure that they get out there, they tell me about themselves. I'll literally interrogate them. They're probably like, she's asking me so many questions. But if I can find something interesting that I know people want to see, I can make a story. And then, of course, there's going to be the people with the 1 million followers who are easier to make marketable, but I wouldn't say anyone is not marketable. If they're willing to show themselves off the field or willing to get out there and come to these events and make contacts with brands, we can always find a way to help them out. So I always want the guys to feel like they can come to me if they need help. I get messages all the time, honestly, from someone on the football team. Hey, I heard you were working on this deal. Like, help me come to. Like, yeah, let me work on it. Tell me about yourself. Like, let's get on a call. So I never want anyone to feel like they're not marketable, because we can find a way to make them marketable.
That's a brilliant response, and either one of you that has a question, jump right in. But I love that response, because I think that fans generally think, and you correct me if I'm wrong here, and I don't just mean at South Carolina, I mean everywhere, Chaise. Spencer Rattler's marketable, Nick Harper's marketable, and there's of course other names at South Carolina. Juice Wells is marketable, but those are the biggest names that everybody knows. But to your point, everybody can be marketable. They might not be at the moment that they walk through that door, but once people like you do your research, get your hands on them and work with them, that's how you create a brand. And I think that's one of the great things about all of this for the University of South Carolina. Not everybody gets to do this and work with pros like Chaise Belt and others in your building who bring out what these young men and young women at the University of South Carolina have in them that they don't even know about yet.
Right. And I think that's another advantage of Park Avenue too, is these athletes that aren't the Spencer and the Juices of the world, they would never have that opportunity to have someone free working for them, that they can get my cell number if they don't already have it from one of the other athletes and text me and say, hey, I want to get involved in this. How can I? Because if you have a small following, or you're not very marketable on the outside, you don't have an agent probably, and you don't have someone that's going to fight for your behalf. but Park Avenue provides that to all South Carolina athletes to fight for them. And we're all sitting here all day, every day, strictly working for them. So I always want them to feel like they can reach out, but other universities don't have that. You have to hire your own agent typically. And that's how the agency world works. And that's why Park Avenue is so unique and so novel in this space, is that we're free to all of them and they can always reach out, ask questions. I had someone text me this morning an agreement that they got from someone randomly on Instagram, and they were like, hey, can you just review this for me really quick? So it's free like legal service too, where I see this all the time. This is so random, but it just made me think about it. I see it all the time where some of these athletes, they'll have people message them on Instagram and send them agreements and they don't even know what they're signing. And if they don't have someone to review that, then they sign it because they just believe people tell them. And for instance, one athlete last year, I was like, hey, send me all of your contracts that you've signed before Park Avenue was around. He sent me one. He didn't even realize he had signed a contract where he was technically in terms with this brand in perpetuity. So that could be if he goes to the league through the rest of his life. And he didn't even know he had signed that. So that's a huge advantage too, is like there's brands and agents coming out of the woodworks just sending these guys agreements over Instagram DMs, and they sign them because they don't realize. So that's another big opportunity for us to teach them. It's a lot of education. And I'm like, send me every agreement that you have, because I'm not going to charge you to review it, but let me review it because I don't want you to get anything that you don't realize the terms you've agreed to.
That's interesting because, you know, they need an advocate, you know, in these times, because these guys have never really done anything like this before. On the back end, does Park Avenue, or would Park Avenue kind of help them, you know, kind of manage financially the money that's coming in, tax responsibilities, things like that? Is that part of what Park Avenue offers?
So I would never say I'm a financial expert. I give my advice. There's specific athletes that have had a lot of income that they didn't have before. And my biggest fear is that it's going to go not to the right places. So I give my advice, but then I also refer them out to actual financial experts. If they have enough money to where it's going to be a concern that they're going to, and I would know that to happen, they need to hire someone. And if not, I'll give my advice. I mean, I went to college, I was a business major, so I have my little tidbits, but I would never say that is my expertise. So yeah, we'll refer them out to people if they really need it. And if not, and don't want them to have to pay for it because it's not enough to where it's worth it, I'll tell you where I think go. Obviously, like a big savings account, you need to make a Roth IRA potentially, little things like that. But I'm not an expert in the finance world at all.
Well, you know, Juice Wells, one of the things when Park Avenue was a little more off the radar, we did see Juice Wells had, they called him the king of NIL deals. A lot of that was Park Avenue. Certainly, can you talk about Juice as a client? Obviously, his name goes a pretty long way with some neat stuff. But, you know, talk about Juice and kind of because, you know, he's a kid that just came in from James Madison and nobody really knew who he was. And in a year, it seems like he's extremely marketable thanks to you and his play on the field.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up. Juice, I feel like, is my little brother. He, like you said, came from James Madison. I think when he came to South Carolina, he had like 9,000 followers, maybe. I mean, he was brand new. And he had a really big first game. And that was right when we got going. And so I was like, oh, this kid had a great first game. At this point, really, he hadn't even established that he was going to go by Juice. He was still kind of going by Juice and Antoine. So I reached out to a bunch of local smoothie places or healthy eats places and was pitching the idea of having like the Juice. Well, we ended up having his first partnership with Tastiest, which is a Columbia-based healthy eats restaurant, grab-and-go type deal. And we made a juice smoothie that was an LTO for a couple months during the fall. And it was a small deal, but it was the first deal he had ever done. And that's really when our relationship began. And he is so funny. I mean, his following's grown. I think he has 23,000 followers now. I handle everything for him. I handle every deal that comes in, every opportunity that comes in. He gets an email, he gets forwarded to me. We talk on the phone, some weeks every single day. I talked to him yesterday. I'm going down to Columbia actually Friday to see him. He is one of those that really lets me handle it. And I think that's why you see that king of NIL graphic come up, because when you let the experts do their work, they're going to do a good job. And he's like, yeah, Chase, you got it. It's all you. So he's funny and he's doing so well. And I'm really excited to see where his season goes, because there's a ton of growth opportunity here. And it goes to show that you listen and you do. Like, I even coach him on his Instagram posts, like what he should be posting, what pictures to include, what pictures maybe not to include. He has a 53-minute YouTube video dropping this week if anyone wants to watch, but it'll be later this week. It's kind of like a Netflix episode. Grab some popcorn.
Wow.
But yeah, he's awesome. And I think that we built a really good relationship like that. I feel like he's a brother at this point.
Do you feel like, and we're speaking with Chaise Belt, Director of Marketing for Park Avenue, for those that will be listening to this at a later date, Chase, do you feel like you are bringing creativity out in the athletes at South Carolina? And I'm going to be a little bit funny with this, but you should get the gist of what I'm saying. Like, do you have a guy walking around now that we're not aware of calling himself, like Pepsi Joyner or, something like that, where you're like, no, I go by Pepsi. Oh, do you? Do you feel like you're seeing more of these guys kind of bring themselves to light in an effort to market themselves a little bit better?
For sure. That's one of the biggest things I talk to them about. If they come to me and they're like, hey, I want to get an NIL. And I'm like, okay, start posting more and show yourself off the field. I mentioned this earlier, but that's something we see perform really well is people want to see that. Like, they watch you on Saturdays. They can go back and rewatch the game film if they want to, but they don't know what you're like off the field. So I mentioned back when Juice was kind of deciding if he was going to go by Juice or Antoine, and I told him, I was like, you have to pick one. And I'm going to recommend Juice because it's very marketable. It's very memorable. But I was like, you got to pick one and run with it, because his social handles at the time, I think Twitter was at Antoine Wells. Instagram was at Juice Wells. Like, they were all different. No one knew what his name was. I'm like, all right, we got to pick one and go. And then half of his partnerships have now been based on that name. So yes, they always want to know that. And I tell them off the field and create a tagline for yourself, not even your name necessarily, but some of them have nicknames now that they go by, or big like the place they did coin it and talk about it on their Twitter all the time now. Yeah, there's little things like that I always suggest they should run with, because like you see with Juice now, all of his deals, we actually have one. We haven't announced it yet. It'll be this fall though, with a local Columbia restaurant, and they're going to have an LTO for the month of October menu item called the Big Juice. So that should be coming soon.
That sounds. If that has anything to do with bourbon or vodka, I'll jump in on that. JC, I did mention to Juju McDowell at the NIL event back in April that he needed to come up with a dance called the Jujuke, and so if he can figure that out, Chase should only be a short phone call away. We don't need any credit. I'm just trying to be helpful.
Just do that. Yeah. One more thing before we go, not related to South Carolina and Park Avenue, but with ESM at large, and you guys do represent certain individual student athletes, Brock Bowers from Georgia being one of them, behind the scenes, and and also kind of out in front, in partnership with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. You guys facilitated what was the largest NIL deal broadly in NIL history. So tell us about that. It didn't involve any individual Gamecock players, but this kind of gives you folks out there an idea of like what the South Carolina players are working with and what this company is able to accomplish through its synergies with its parent.
Right. Yeah. So Zoa is Dwayne "The Rock's energy drink. And so Zoa actually came to us as a sports marketing agency, wanted help with talent. They were like, we want to get involved with NIL athletes. We don't know how. Don't want to go to one agency that's only going to recommend their clients. We want a diverse group of race, gender, sport. They were like, we want everything and we want someone to guide it. So they hired us to do so, which is how we subcontracted. Brock obviously is one of our clients, but then we had Angel Reese at LSU, Drake May at my she's a softball player, and so anyone won our basketball, and really tried to do exactly what they wanted. Marvin Harrison Jr. at Ohio State. All flew them out to LA this past weekend. They got to meet The Rock, had a huge photo shoot. If you want to check out those pictures, Zoa's Instagrammed them, we've Instagrammed them. There's a bunch of them. But yeah, so we do very high level things and we don't talk about it enough, I think just because we're so busy. But yes, there is a lot going on behind the scenes in the background of ESM that university athletes are doing for free.
Chaise, I want to make sure I get this in before we run you out of here. If there is a business that, or a business owner, I should say, maybe that is listening to our programming currently, or will be at a later date or watching, is there a way for them to contact you? And if they have their own idea, or if they're interested in your ideas to see if they're a fit, or maybe potentially could be a fit, you know, can you kind of quickly walk us through that process, what y'all are interested in, what you're looking for, and maybe where to go from there? Or should they just call JC? Because, you know, look at him. Why wouldn't you want to call JC?
I mean, they can absolutely call JC. He has my cell. I can put my email here too. Yeah, if you're a brand that either A, is interested in capitalizing on NIL to help promote your brand, or you're a brand that wants to support a specific South Carolina student athlete, for instance, we help all brands in that way. Or if you're a brand that you're like, hey, I need some marketing help. I don't know if I'm going to do it now, but I just want to chat. I talk through creative ideas with people all the time. So you don't have to come to me and be like, yep, I have this amount of dollars and this is who I want to give it to. You don't have to know that ahead of time. Just email me. We'll hop on a call. It's Chaise. My name's spelled really weird. CHAIS. Thank you. At thisisesm.com. But yeah, email me. We can hop on a call, whether it's just to support, you have a great idea, a budget, or you have no idea, but you still want to chat and get to know a little better. I'm happy to do so.
Well,
yeah. So like if you're out there, you have a string of car dealerships or something, or a chain of restaurants across the state, or anything like that, you want, you know, Spencer Rattler to, or whoever, specific players, that's get in touch with Chaise, because we can facilitate things like that pretty quickly now.
You do realize
with that.
Revert back what, guys, 15 years, maybe more than that, 20 years. Cadillac Williams is going, where was this when I was playing at Auburn?
Right.
You know, like, the guy would have been in a new caddy every weekend if he was well, you know, we'd love.
Well, that's
to have
not to say
back.
He wasn't, though, JB.
Yeah, well, he probably was.
Probably
right?
You know what,
Chaise is a Bama gal. She knows. She gets it.
We know how it is down there, but
yeah, we know what happens on the plains. Chaise, if you'd be willing, we would love to have you back in the future, and maybe try to work out something where we can get you on more often, just to give us an update on how this is connected and how it is helping athletes at the University of South Carolina. You're better than all of us to give that message. So we'd love to do it in the future. And thank you so much for your time and for your efforts.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Thank you for having me. I would love to do it again. Just shoot me a text. I'll hop on whenever.